Hi everyone, so we're going to show you how to be transferring your stamped images onto the front of a candle. What I love about this is that you can't actually see anywhere. If I just take this up a little bit, you can't see where this is sort of attached. And the reason for this is that we first stamp on tissue paper. So what I'm going to use is Winter Blooms, and then we're also going to use the Christmas by Candlelight again. And we're going to create this little scene first. So basically you need a piece of tissue paper. So basically the rule of thumb is if you're using a white tissue paper, you want a white candle, cream tissue paper, cream candle. This is just so you're not going to see any of those edges. So the very first thing we're going to do is put our light on for the candle. Don't worry about the crease in here because like I said, it will just disperse into the candle when we finish. So important to know that you're actually working on the shiny side of the tissue paper. So if you look closely at your tissue paper, one side should have a little bit of a sheen to it. And the reason for this is we want the paper to actually soak in to the candle wax. And the matte side is going to do this much more easily. So make sure that you're stamping on the shiny side of your tissue paper. So if you want a bit more light than that, then we can go over. So this is a bit of perseverance really when you're doing this technique, because you don't want to be heating this candle too quickly. You need to heat this with a heat gun, mainly because you're going to really melt it and you're going to end up with big gaps in your candle when you want to keep it as smooth as you possibly can. So it is a bit of trial and error, and this is going to be a bit of a noisy one as well, because we've got to actually use the heat gun in amongst this. So I'm going to make sure I've got that high enough up. And don't make your images too big either, because obviously the bigger it is, the harder it is. You can always put more on if you want to. And then do that again at a later date. Don't worry about anything that you get on the side here, because we're going to be trimming that off anyway. So let's put the little base on. So you can make this as elaborate as you want, because you can use the same techniques on top of the tissue paper that we do when we do the rest of the cards. You can actually just go to town on this if you want. But again, just keep it in a small area and then do sections of your candle at a time rather than try and do it all in one go, because it will make life that little bit easier. So let's get our little flame on before we forget. So let's pop that on about here. Okay. I'd have probably done that a little bit further up, but never mind. So we're going to add in the little Winter Bloom set, and again, use anything that you've got. It doesn't really matter. Now you will find it's sort of quite sticky when you try and stamp onto here, so you will need to hold on to the tissue paper like I'm doing here. Okay. Now on this one we've put the robin in, so if you do have a little robin, then you could pop one on top of there if you want to as well. So just carry on, just filling this out. Again, just don't make it that bit too big, because obviously you've got to sort of heat it further around the candle because of the shape of the candle. Okay, and then just fill in. Just be a little bit careful, because like I said, with it being quite sticky, you don't want to rip your tissue paper. Let's just put a couple of the little branches in here. Now then, don't be frightened when you're cutting this out. You don't have to cut this out exactly. Okay, so I'm just showing you the technique really more than anything. Great if you want to use these to give us little gifts as well. And like I said, what I do like about this is that you don't sort of end up being able to see where your actual tissue paper is attached. So can you see sort of how roughly I'm cutting this out? It does not have to be very neat at all. Okay, so just roughly go around. And I wouldn't normally cut out on here, but it's just to show you actually that you don't need to be anywhere as precise as you think you do. Okay, so this is sort of the look that we've ended up with. Let's just find a nice clean area to work on so you can see. Okay, and then what we need to do is just to pop this onto our candle. So I'm going to use a little bit of Pritt stick or anything like this, and then we're just going to pop this just little areas This is only to hold it in place, and you do not want a lot. So only to sort of tack it down while you work, and then position this exactly where you want it on your candle. Okay, so you should end up with that. The next thing we've got to do is start to melt this into our candle. So we need a piece of greaseproof paper, okay? So this is just ordinary greaseproof paper that you would find in any of the supermarkets. Like I said, I do apologise because it's going to get a little bit noisy. And what you're aiming to do is keep this as smooth as you possibly can. So I'm going to start with this very edge here. And we're going to start to use the heat gun on this and melt this into the candle. So you need to make sure it's pulled tight. If you want to, you could wear some sort of gloves, or you could hold this with something different. Just be careful not to sort of burn your fingers on this. And then gradually, you're just going to start to melt over the top. Okay, and what you do see, as it starts to work, you'll see the actual image come through that little bit more clearly. And just remember as well, your heat gun generally takes, can you see how we're just starting to see a little bit more of that image coming through here? So you don't want to overheat it, because you don't want big sort of gaps in your candle. So keep it moving a little bit. And then when you start to see the image, this is when it started to soak into the candle. So I just make sure that's nice and smooth. Okay, and what I'm going to show you now is how this starts to look. Can we see here where this has started to just disappear into the candle? And I don't know if you can make out here, this is the bit that we haven't heated yet. So basically all you have to do from this point is just to carry on working around your candle. And again, just make sure that this is nice and tight and you've no sort of creases in there. So pull it as tight as you can with your fingers. And you're just going to start to melt this all the way across. You can also roll your candle just to ensure that you're sort of keeping it nice and smooth. But the trick is not to try and do it too quickly. Just sort of let it start to disperse into the candle. So once you see that image coming through, that's when you know it's starting to sort of sink into that candle wax. And like I said, you can always roll it. So if you've sort of overheated a little bit too much, just by rolling it on the surface like that, should start to dissolve that in. So you know, you can see we've got most of this done and we need to work on the other side. So it's just a case of keep turning your candle and working around until you've got all of your candle completely covered. So we may not do all of this because I'm just very aware of the time. And obviously once you know how to do this part, it's just straightforward. So again, just make sure that your hands are out of the way and then just gradually heat, smooth with your fingers, just make sure it's not too hot. And generally you can see, because you can see your image start to come through the candle. But it's just important that you don't actually overheat this, because like I said, you don't want wax running out of the bottom here. And you want the candle to be as smooth as possible. Okay, so let's have a quick look. But if it's not completely done, then you know all you have to do is to just carry on heating that candle until this has completely disappeared. Now, it's important never to leave your candles unattended, so I just want to stress that first. I'm going to put a little bit of glossy accents on there, but if you're unsure about this, then I wouldn't do that. But it does look quite pretty. A lot of people don't actually burn these, and for that reason that makes this pretty safe, because all you have to do is scoop out a bit of the top of the candle, and then you can pop in a little tea light, and that way you get to keep the candle forever and you can keep bringing it out year upon year. So that's my advice. I probably wouldn't light it, even though I have done, but just to make it that bit safer, my advice is just to pop a little tea light in the top of it, and then you've got to keep it forever. Then makes a fantastic little gift as well. So there we have it. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it's useful, and I hope you can go on and make some lovely gifts. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye.